Everyone, look at your life, look at your choices. Choosing to watch this video is the best choice that you've ever made. In case you're new here, kindly consider subscribing to this channel. And for the returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back and appreciating my content. In today's video, we are continuing with analysis of A Silent Song and Other Stories. This book by Godwin Siundu. It's an anthology of stories, and you're moving on to the next story. That is the second last story, Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga from Kenya. Kindly sit back, relax, and enjoy the analysis. To begin with, Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga is a very interesting story, and it's a nice read for every individual. Number one thing, there are a lot of things and more so culture and traditions that are being captured in this book, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy. To begin with, the title Boyi suits the story simply because the central character is Boyi, and the story revolves around Boyi, the main character in this book. The story talks about Boyi as a young boy having to be engaged in a lot of activities that we're going to find out as we continue with the analysis of the book. Number one thing that we're going to talk about is the characters that we have in the book. We have different characters in this book. Number one character, we have the narrator. Narrator talks about the story of the brother. The narrator, the sister to Boyi, talks about the story of Boyi, talks about the story of the brother, and also children, how they lived, and all that is said in this story. Another thing that we can find out, there is also this character called Mama. Mama is devoted to her family, and that can be clearly seen by the way Mama is devastated when she lost the son, that is Boyi. This mother is devoted to this family, takes good care of the family and all that. And then we have Baba, who surrenders the son to the militia just because he was unable to pay the tax. It doesn't mean that surrendering the son meant that he wasn't wanting this son in the first place, but it meant that they had nothing to submit, nothing to surrender. And he surrendered the son with the hopes that when he gets the money, he will go back and pick the son, Boyi. Then we also have another character, Matwakei. Matokei holds the assignment of influence over the community. Matokei forms this group called militia to counterattack the government. The government was oppressing people. The government was doing all that, and they were not happy as a community, and they wanted to stop this and to chase these people away. And because the government allowed intruders to come and invade their place. But what they did, they came up with a group called militia, and this group was meant to help counterattack the government on the behalf of the community. We are talking about the Kalenjin community. This is a story that has been drawn from that community. Yes, and also we have another character called Boyi, the central character that I've talked about. Then we have Sergeant. This is a person who is so ruthless and very cruel. And we see this at the point where he throws Boyi out of the helicopter. Really, who does that? And then we have Chesaina. This is the old friend of Baba who brings the news home and tells Baba that he saw Boyi so grown and the right-hand person of Matwakei. That meant that they're working together with Matwakei and all that. So Baba comes and breaks the news to Chesaini comes and breaks the news to the family and Baba, the friend. Then we have the last character, Simoni, who delivers a copy of newspaper with the news of the death of the son, Boyi. So this is the person that brings the news home. So these are the characters that I have in the book. And then there are key concepts in this story that you should get to understand as we go. At the beginning, we have the demand of the militia. We are introduced to this story when there is the foreshadow. They begin by talking about madness entered Mama's eyes. Madness entered Mama's eyes the day Baba pushed my brother Boyi to Matwakei and said, "Hold on to the boy until I find your 40,000 land protection tax, and then I will have him back." When Baba had put the latch on the door, After Boyi and the men were swallowed by the darkness outside, Mama stood abruptly as though fire ants had invaded her body. She tore off her kitenge headscarf and started to shout. She told him he was sick in the head. To think Boyi would return. Was he deaf? Had his ear not caught stories of neighbors' sons who had been recruited by the militia? So the story begins by talking about how Mama reacted, how madness entered Mama. Madness entered Mama. Remember, this is someone who is devoted to the family. This is someone who loves the family so much, especially Boyi. And then this son, the firstborn son, whom this mother loves so much because of some other reasons that we're going to find out, this boy is now given out to the militia. It was so devastating for this woman. And because of this, madness entered her. This woman cried and all that, and the mourning season started immediately. Boyi was given away, not even after the death. Yes, and also again, we can see there's also, under the demand of the militia, these people come to demand from this man, Baba, protection tax of the land. And on top of that, they're also demanding that the betrayal tax to be given. Remember, this is a group that is meant to come to protect the community. But what they do, they come to demand for that protection tax and also the betrayal tax. Baba gave out a rope, that is makonge, and a panga to the Europeans. Yes, let's find out. We can see that Baba had given out a panga and makonge for assisting the government when they were measuring land. And because of this, it was seen as betrayal by these people. And they said that instead, they're going to demand a betrayal tax from this man and also protection tax of the land, which they were always giving. So they're demanding that from this man. And that's why we see this the demand of the militia. They come, they demand all that. And because Baba could not give out whatever was needed, Baba now is forced to give out the son instead. Baba even tries to tell them that tomorrow in the morning, I'll ensure that I send my bull, I send my cow, so that I can give you the money that is required. Baba tells them and begs them to do that, but instead they don't agree to it. What they do is just say that you didn't wait until tomorrow to give the government the rope and the panga, so we want the tax now. Because of this, this man is forced to give out the son in return, or rather in exchange for that, with the hope that one day he was going to come back after getting the money and take Boyi back. This was not going to be possible. Yes, we'll find out. Then there's also life after Boyi left. Everyone was devastated. Life was now at a standstill. Boyi is now gone. Boyi has left. The mother now becomes mad. We can see that. This mourning, this sorrow, this grief that has now clouded this home, and that one can be seen in the book. They kept crying and all that. We can say Baba just sat there and held his rage family with his hands. He pulled in his lips too an arrow thread like a line drawn on his dark face by a ruler. His voice then sank to a metallic whisper, and he asked Mama what she wanted him to do. For the father to give out the son didn't mean that he didn't love this boy. It just meant that he was not in a position of raising the money that was required by the militia, and now he was forced to surrender the only son to these people with the hope that one day the son is going to come back. He's going to pay the money and the son will be released. Yes, and then also there is also Operation Okoa Maisha. These people have formed an Operation Okoa Maisha. The government has decided to put its head in the matter of launching Operation Okoa Maisha. He said, a troop of 200 armed forces men have already been dispatched in huge green lorries. They're coming to flush out the militia. Militia was formed to counterattack the government. And now the government is also coming with a group that is going to help them counterattack the militia. And that is Okoa Maisha, Operation Okoa Maisha. In this Operation Okoa Maisha, it was formed to counterattack the militia, just as I've said. And we can see there's also now the loss of life. Yes. So away from that, we can see that from this Operation Okoa Maisha, now Boyi meets his death. Mama did not roll on the ground when Simone described how Boyi had been captured deep in the sacred caves. She did not weep when he said Boyi was hoisted to the aircraft, and then after it had ascended up like a kite, he was shoved out by sergeant without a parachute. Imagine. So they're talking about Boyi being thrown or shoved out of the aeroplane without a parachute. We can see that aircraft without a parachute. That is the same as just murdering someone. That is a lot of brutality, and all that happened. Yes, so we can see that. And then now Boyi meets the death. Who comes home with the news? Simone. Simone brings the newspaper that had the news of Boyi's death. We see that. And then going direct to thematic concerns in this book, we can see this the tradition and belief, the traditions, the beliefs of these people. In this community, they believe, Mama talks about giving birth to Boyi, confirming that the genies had not tied her womb. This means that they're believing in these genies. They believe that women's wombs are tied by these genies, and that can be seen from there's that tradition. And under tradition, we can also talk about the Nandi flame tree. They're talking about this Nandi flame tree being struck when it was raining, and they're saying that if that happened, it can signify bad omen or good omen. To the narrator, to the sister of Boyi, this narrator thought that it meant some bad omen. It meant some bad omen. And all that, because of it, the narrator goes back, started crying, and all that is happening. And then the mother thinks that good omen simply, the striking of the 90 flame tree simply signified some good omen. And by saying that, the mother was hopeful that maybe because of that has happened, then the son is now coming back. The son is now going to come back, which doesn't happen. We can see in the story that the news is being brought of the death of this son, Boyi. Then there's also another theme, the war and its effects. It's a dominant theme that we can see in the book. From the beginning, we are introduced to people mourning, people grieving, people giving away their children, and all that. And we can see it's a dominant factor in this book. We see the Matokei fighting against the government. There is war. They're counterattacking the government. The government is taking away the land of these people from this community. And the Matokei has come up with this group, militia, to counterattack this government to stop. But does that really happen? What happens in this book that we can clearly see, the Matokei, the people that were, the militia, the group that was supposed to protect the people, is now the group that is cutting off people's necks. This is the group that is recruiting young people to war, which was uncalled for. And all this is happening, we can see this. And they also demanding land protection tax. They're demanding land protection tax in order to protect these people. Yes, and also we can see that Boyi is recruited as a young boy. Boyi was so young, and they're recruiting even young boys as young as 6 years old. You can imagine. And then there's also the fact that people don't work because of war. People fail to go to work. How can you go to work when the government and the militia are fighting? It is risky. Then there's brutality. Having to throw someone from an aircraft, shove them and throw them outside. That's brutality. That's killing mercilessly. And then there's also the Matokei cutting people's necks mercilessly. That is war. That is brutality. Another thing we can see, there's displacement of people. In the book, we can see, we are told that these people were moving from different destinations. Some to Bungoma. We can see that in the book, they were relocating, moving. Another effect of war that we can see, there's also lack of schooling. People don't go to school. You can imagine a boy being taken as a young boy. You can imagine little girls being taken to go and cook for the militia. So it means that the schooling was stopped. There was lack of schooling. They were not going to school at any point. And then there's also family and relationship. You imagine boy being taken away from the family. Boy is taken away from the family, and after boy is taken away, there's that displacement. Boy moves on and moves to a different place, living with the militia or the Matwakei, and then the mother and the family, they remain back at home, devastated, hopeless, and all that. So there's that family and relationship. We can see that family members are torn apart. A complete family. Your child can be taken away. Then there's also grief and loss. They grieve. We can see mama really grieves until she tears her cloth. We can see she tore off her kitenge headscarf and started to shout. She told him he was sick in the head to think boy would return. Was he deaf? Had his ears not caught stories? Yeah. So there's that grieving, and we can see even Baba is grieving at some point. Even though he doesn't show it, he was grieving. Yes, and then there's also power and control. The government has power. The government is controlling people. Militia also thinks that they have power. They're trying to counterattack the government and all that. All this is happening in this community. Yes, and then there's also loyalty and betrayal. The government is supposed to protect the people. The government is now leading to the deaths of people. The government is now attacking the same people that it's supposed to protect. Another team comes, the militia, who is supposed to protect people. This team is supposed to come up with ways of protecting these people and counterattacking the government. Because the government was giving away their land, the government was doing all that for them, and they were not really okay with it. But instead, the Matoke is now cutting people's heads. The Matoke is now driving people's children to this war. Matoke is now ruthless. The militia, they're not ruthless. I mean militia. And all that is happening. So there's that loyalty and betrayal. Again, we can see loyalty and betrayal with this character Baba. Baba is expected to be with the militia, to be on the side of the militia, but that doesn't happen in his case. Instead, Baba gives away a rope and a panga to the government so that they can use it to measure land. And that was uncalled for because it was betrayal. And that is why he's forced to pay betrayal tax. Yeah, those are the main themes that we can see in this book. So thank you so much for following to this point. To close it at that point, that is the end of the analysis. If you've not read this book, it's a nice read, and the stories are so fascinating. Boyi by Gloria Mwaniga from Kenya is a nice read that also talks about the Kalenjin. We can see the saying, the villages of Kopsiro, Saromet, Chepyuk, and Chelebei all had a thick yellow fog of fear over them. The fear came about, nobody understood the mind of militia anymore. So this is a Kalenjin community having to evacuate their homeland and move to different places. So thank you so much for watching this video to the end. Thank you so much for considering to subscribe, and let's meet in the next video. Bye.